Hello, BookTube. I'm not in the best of moods right now, so maybe doing a book tag will perk me up. Or maybe not. Regardless, today I'm going to be doing the 10 Untouched Books Tag created by Reiner of Rainier Books. I will link to his channel in the show notes down below. There is only one prompt to this tag. Select 10 books that you have had in your collection for over a year that you have not read. I will add that I have not attempted to read any of these books. I have selected no bails. I might do a separate video on that later. I have selected 5 works of fiction and 5 works of nonfiction. I'm going to start with the fiction. First up is science fiction, Sundiver by David Brin. This is a novel about an investigation into the possibility that there are life forms living on the sun. I have had this book for a number of years, and David Brin is a major science fiction writer. I'm not entirely sure if I will ever read this book. For the last few years, my love of science fiction has withered to practically nothing, and I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with my science fiction collection. I think I want to downsize it even more than it has over the last few years, but that's the subject of a different video. Now, in August, there is a personal BookTube event that I'm going to be doing, maybe, where science fiction could play a role, but and this book might be a candidate for that, or not, depending on how things turn out. I'm not terribly enthusiastic. I must be honest with you. So I don't know whether or not I'm going to. So I'm going to go put Sundiver back over with the other books, because I did pull some out for that possible August reading plan. And since it's science fiction, I don't really have to worry about how I will add new books to those sections. Anyway, moving on to historical fiction. This is The Iron King by Maurice Druon. Let me see if I can find the translator. Translated from French by Humphrey Hare. So this is a historical novel set in the early 14th century and is about the end of the first part of the Capetian dynasty. The Capetians were the French royal family for a number of centuries, from the 10th century through the 14th century, although technically the Capetian dynasty lasted up until the overthrow of the Louis the 18th, because it's the same dynasty, it's just different branches. The Valois, and then the Bourbon, and then the Orleans after the Revolution and Napoleonic interlude, before the French monarchy was finally permanently overthrown in 1848. Unless you count Napoleon III, in which case it would be 1871. But anyway, so this is back in the early 14th century, where Isabella of France, who was at the time the English queen, uncovers the possibility that her sisters-in-law were less than faithful to her brothers, and all hell broke loose. So This was one of those novels that inspired George R. R. Martin when he created A Song of Ice and Fire, which is why there's a blurb from him on the very top of this paperback. I'm very ambivalent about historical fiction. Personally, I much prefer reading the actual history. And I have actually read a number of books that touch on this subject, not on its own, but as part of wider histories of the Capetian dynasty at this time. And I really like those histories, but something tells me a fictionalized account might tick me off. So I don't know if I will ever actually get around to reading this or not. Next up is Immortality by Milan Kundera, translated from the Czech by Peter Kusi. This is a book that I have wanted to read for a very long time, since I was a teenager. And just recently, about a year or so ago, I finally picked it up, and I have not yet read it. I really need to find the time to do so. Just not entirely sure how. And I don't know if there's any booktube events or anything that could kind of give that little push, which is the great thing about booktube events. Next is The Trouble with Goats and Sheep by Joanna Cannon. This is a novel set in the 1970s in the UK, and I picked it up several years ago because I think Simon Savage really enjoyed it, and so I picked it up from Book Depository. I think this might have been one of the first books from them that I ever purchased, and I have not gotten around to it. Again, at some point I need to find the time to do so. Although, given how much space I have on the bookcase, the section of my library where they are at, it might be a while before I get rid of it either which way. And finally, the last of the fiction is The Good Lord Bird by James McBride. This is also a historical novel set in the 1850s and is about John Brown's attack on Harper's Ferry. I've not gotten around to this book yet either. Although I'm thinking maybe that same booktube, that same event, or whatever the hell you would call it, that I might do Sundiver, this would also be a candidate for that. Unless I decide to try to do My Name is Read by Orhan Pamuk once again. Anyway, moving on to the nonfiction. Most of this will be history, because most of my nonfiction is history. First up is Germany, 1923 by Volker Ullrich. This is translated from the German by Jefferson Chase. This is a history of 1923, which was published in 1923, or maybe might have got the English translation might have come out in 2024. Anyway, so this is a history of a pivotal moment in the early years of the Weimar Republic, which succeeded the German Empire after World War I. In 1923, a number of incidents occurred, including financial crisis in Germany that resulted in a difficulty in trying to pay the reparations to France and Belgium that led to the French invasion of Western Germany. It also included the beer hall putsch of Adolf Hitler. I've read an earlier, and there's another history on 1923 that came out in the same year that I read. And so I've been kind of putting this one off, but I would like to get to it. Next up is Tudor England, a history by Lucy Wooding. So this is about the Tudors, and I think it's a bit more of a social history rather than a political history. I've had this for a number of years, I think, and Have not gotten around to it yet. I really would like to get to it soon, though. Also, a book that I have had for a number of years and not gotten to is Bloodlands, Europe Between Hitler and Stalin by Timothy Snyder. So this is a World War II history that looks at the Eastern Front. Have not gotten around to it yet. The last two books are American history and biography. Starting with Grant by Ron Chernow. This is a massive biography of Ulysses S. Grant, who was a major general in the U.S. Civil War and President of the United States. This is a massive biography by Ron Chernow, and I have not gotten to it yet. I've had this book for a number of years, and it just hasn't piqued my interest enough to get around to reading it, even though I did think about trying this for People April. It just didn't work out. And finally, American Empire, A Global History by A.G. Hopkins. So this is a history of the United States in terms of it as a empire and as a global empire. I've had this for a few years now. I think this was one of the first books I ever bought from Princeton University Press. Because I think the first batch of books I bought, they had a number of books on sale that were related to American history, which is why I picked up quite a bit of that. I have not gotten around to this, even though I do believe it is highly recommended by Steve Donahue. So those are the 10 untouched books, or some of the 10 untouched books I have in my collection. Maybe I will get to some of these sooner than others. Maybe some of these will get the boot before I even get a chance to read them. I don't know. I will attempt to remember to report back. Anyway, BookTube, until I see you next time, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.